I'm just going to jump right in and let's start with Stephanie. So Stephanie, if you would just unmute yourself and there we go.
Sure,
You're there.
Yeah. Okay.
You're good. You're good. So this is Stephanie's second year in the show. And I remember seeing your work a few years ago, kind of probably about when you really started sculpting. And I loved your vision. I loved your take on the horse. You are a horsewoman. Yeah, and so sculpting the horse is really an important part of what you do. And I loved when you were talking about when you started sculpting, you didn't sculpt the horse at first. Would you tell us why?
Well, when I started painting, I started as a painter, an oil.
Can you speak up? I'm sorry, yeah, there you go.
I started as an oil painter, and so I didn't paint the horse. I just wanted to learn to become a good artist, a great artist, not just a horse artist, because I grew up drawing horses and kind of that girl that was obsessed with them. So I wanted to shift my focus from just the subject to my technique and learning to just make good art.
Nice.
And then when I started sculpting, I needed a subject, and then I started using the horse.
Gotcha. So why did you switch from painting to sculpture?
I always wanted to do both. In fact, these are my abstract paintings in the background. I thought painting was more accessible, and I studied it for, I think, 2 years when I committed full-time as an artist, and it really influenced how I sculpt. I think if I hadn't started with oil painting, I may not be sculpting in the way that I do.
How did it influence how you work in sculpture?
Because I like, when I was painting, I like to see the brushwork, just put it on there and leave it. So you see the process. So when I went to sculpture, I still think that way. Like I'm thinking of describing the form, but also using these interesting pieces and bits instead of smoothing it out and making it all just the shape that I'm trying to achieve. I want there to be interest in the piece. You can see, like I just stick that on and I leave it. I don't mess with it. And I have to be very deliberate about how I place the final pieces of clay on the piece so that it looks random, but it isn't actually.
Yeah. So in a way, it's sort of painting. So you want to get that texture, but you also want to have a flow, or you want to describe movement, or what is the texture doing on sculpture for you?
It's doing different things. I mean, it's creating interest, and it's leaving something for the viewer to fill in with their eye, because obviously, like, a horse doesn't have this big there's a muscle there, I think, in terms of muscles. So it is describing the muscles sometimes. But it also guides your eye, like that. See that dark line? It really shows up in the clay. This is the clay that I used to work in. It's not quite as strong in the bronze because it's darker. But I think in terms of small, medium, and large pieces, as I place them, just to create some interest in rhythm in the piece.
Gotcha.
So,
I got you.
See there, this small piece right here, and this is maybe a medium-sized plane.
Yeah.
And then this one, you can't see the whole thing, but that would be larger.
Could you tip your camera so we could see a little bit more of that texture? Yeah. Okay. So wonderful. Yeah. So that's good. So yeah. So now we can see how the skeleton, like the structure is all there, right? But now you're giving it more of that abstracted surface texture, right?
Yes, I definitely think from the inside out of the animal. I'm thinking first, as I'm building it, of the bones, and then the muscle, and then the skin would be more my texture.
Yeah. Okay. I love it. And then that buffalo. Okay. So,
That's a new piece I'm working on right now.
oh, wow. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So, okay. I'm going to screen share with your work. And would you talk to us about it? And I really want to talk about a number of different things when it comes to your work, especially what inspires you. And so I've pulled up on the screen Olympia. And this is not a very big piece, but it is dramatic. There's a lot of drama here. Yeah, so would you talk about this piece?
Sure. That piece I created, one, it was inspired by the horses of St. Mark's in Venice. I spent some time as a painter in Venice, and of course I found the horses there. They were the sculpture. So that inspired me a bit. It also was a maquette for a larger piece I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And I did it at a quick draw in Scottsdale. I had the plan, but I did it at a 90-minute quick draw.
Wait, in sculpture? A quick draw in sculpture?
Yeah. I practiced the whole thing twice beforehand. And I did start with just a basic kind of triangle, but I sculpted the entire surface, the head, and the legs in 90 minutes.
Wow.
But I did practice twice before. I don't know if anyone ever does that at a quick draw, but I was like, it was really early on when I had just started sculpting, and I didn't want to look like a fool. So I was like, I have to nail this.
Yeah.
And I did. I'm happy with it.
So let me ask you about this, because, you do see in historic works and things like that, you'll see busts that are done this way, whether intentional or if that was all that's left of the artifact, that it's broken off. And I love how you're doing this, where the cursor is, and then also it's on this steel, I'm assuming steel peg.
Yes.
And on this rough hewn stone. And I'm wondering if you would kind of talk about, as a sculptor, how do you make those decisions, and why did you decide to do it as a bust? I mean, obviously it's a quick draw piece, but maybe talk about how this came together as a finished piece, and the patina.
Oh, lots of questions there.
Lots of questions.
You're about 5. So if I just want to do a bust, on a canvas, you just stop. But at some point, as a sculpture, it has to have a backside too, or I guess it could be hollow. But I wanted it to feel like it was maybe an ancient artifact that was broken, as you referred to. And so the hardest part in a piece like that is to figure out where it ends and how it ends.
Yeah.
Know where the ear is and the eye is and the muscles and the neck and shoulder. Those already tell us where they are, but how to finish the rough edge and make it look random that's the hardest part. It's very challenging. And then the steel just makes it feel like an artifact. It lifts it off and makes it feel like something you would see in a museum. The base, the stone base, that's maybe the second trickiest part, because I have to go and find a stone that is the right shape and size, and that's challenging. It's like I have to go look at the stone yard, or I had someone sourcing them for me at first. And so each one's different. I can't promise that I'll never find that stone again, because they come from the wild. So
that's cool.
And then the patina, the Kubrick patina, the green copper patina, is something that you would see sculpture potentially turn into naturally, but we force that with chemicals and heat. And I just love that classic color on it. I think it's my favorite patina to use, but each piece requires asks for a different patina. Some of them can be any color, but some of them want just a certain color. So
wow,
I'd have to determine that. That was a really tough piece to learn as a new sculptor, because I've done patinas, but I don't do them myself. I work with patina artists, and you have to be able to see into the future and know what you want. So if you're not accustomed to what it looks like when you start, it just takes some time to get used to that. So I finally have landed on a great patina artist, and we work together well. So really happy.
Nice.
And I do have, I don't know if you're going to come back to me, I do have a wax cast of that Olympia piece. It's kind of beat up, but I can show you scale when you come back to me.
Okay, perfect. So let's talk about Reach Recklessly. And this was truly a piece that really caught my eye with your work, because horses do this. They get themselves into predicaments. And but there's just so elegant and sculptural in that way. And so tell us a little bit about Reach Recklessly.
So the inspiration for it was, I was managing a barn in Evergreen, Colorado, a dressage barn. And I was watching one horse reaching over the fence to his neighbor, trying to grab grab his halter or his, just bite it, they play.
Yeah.
And he was reaching with everything he had, to the point where his rear end was almost coming off the ground, because he was trying to get to that. And I love how they twist their head and they reach with their muzzle, and try, extend themselves as far as they can for what they want. And then when I was making it, I was just starting my work, and it felt like I needed to, I was giving it everything that I had. I quit everything, burned the ships, went all in with art. So it felt a little reckless, but I dove in with, and it's paid off.
I love that. I love that. I think that's almost a thing with art and with artists, that there is that sense of just giving it your all. Like at some point you just have to reach recklessly and say, I'm going to do this. And so let's talk about Search as well. So Searching the Wind, it seems.
Yes. So Reach Recklessly was my first piece that I cast. And then there was a trilogy, Reach, Search, and Focus, which I believe you have that one on there as well.
Search is up, yeah.
So it's the story of starting my work. I was searching, like trying to figure out what I really want to do for myself, with my life, with my work. So focusing on art, and Reach Recklessly was just going for it. So
nice, wonderful.
That's Focus there. So
and Focus, yeah.
And that was inspired by a rare horse breed, Akalteki, that is very greyhound-like. So I liked the lines in that piece.
Oh, wow, lovely, yeah. It's just so elegant and muscular too. Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. Okay, and this is a newer one for you too, isn't it? Presence.
Yes.
Mo and Benson.
Yes. Mo is my horse. I have a thoroughbred. I do eventing. And Benson is the brother to my Bijou, my Whippet, and that's her litter mate. I have a couple of other Whippet sculptures, so I had to pick a different name. But Presence is being present with the other, the person that you're, or the other being, was the thought behind that piece.
Oh, that's wonderful. So I had a horse when I was growing up named Mo.
You did?
I did.
Oh, that's great.
He was the best. So show us that little, the little wax.
This is the wax. So you can see it's like big as my head.
Yeah.
It's beat up a little bit. The ears are broken off. It's becoming its own relic.
Yeah.
This is part of the casting process. And so first I would start with the clay, we'd make a mold of it, which I have a mold right here, happen to have, that's what I just ran out to the car to get. There's a rubber mold. This is another piece, but those are ears for the big version, my like monumental size version of Olympia.
Wow.
And it's just like a mother mold on the outside to keep the shape.
Nice.
And then from that, we make the wax. And from the wax, they make another shell around the wax, burn out the wax, pour in the bronze. And that's where you get the term lost wax.
Yep. Perfect. Perfect. Okay, Stephanie, go nowhere. I am going to pop over to Israel and shine a spotlight on you, my friend. How are you? Gotta just unmute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Perfect, perfect, okay. Perfect. How are you out there on the Western Slope? You moved, right?
We're doing good over here.
Good.
Yeah.
Good, good. So, watercolor, and you are in the process of doing some kind of monumental stuff too. So let's talk about that in a sec, but I really want to talk about you and the work. And I know you, something that I just really admire about you is this sort of sense of fearlessness, because you try so many different things. And I think there is this sense of in the arts that you create something and you've got to just hang on to it. You know, it's just so precious. And I feel that you have that, but then there's also like, whoops, that didn't work. Let's just try another one. Like you're just constantly putting yourself out there with different work. And I'm wondering if you would talk about that spirit that you bring to your paintings.
Yeah, certainly. You know, I try other things, I think, just to try to make me better at painting my regular stuff. You know, I think when we think outside the box, or maybe even sometimes just turn the box inside out, you know, and I think, what can I do when we turn it back the other way? You know, you've maybe opened up some different channels. So that's really the reason I do it. I mean, I paint with red wine on cotton paper, which people are really starting to like those. And I am doing a large project that you mentioned down here at our local museum. Yeah,
tell me about that just a little bit.
It's the museum commissioned me. It was their idea. They came to me and said, you know, we want to maybe do the largest watercolor in the world. And yeah, and they wanted to know if you know, they only make paper so big, and so how we could do this. It started back in February, and I had to do a lot of research, but you know, we finally came to the point that we were going to do it. They found funding for it, and so it is almost completed now. You can go on the Facebook of the Museum of Northwest Colorado. They've been documenting the whole thing.
Okay. So, wow. Wow. How is it going to...
Really the hardest part, and what people ask, is how do we do the substrate? You know, once you get the paper, it's just a large watercolor painting, but that was really the challenge, is how to make it, you know, it uses 3 rolls of paper, and how to glue them on there with the right separation code so it's a fine piece of art and it won't ever, you know, fade or bleed through.
Wow. So make a note of that and check back with Israel Holloway, because that's really fun to, in fact, tell me the museum. I'm going to put it in our chat if people want to go look it up.
It's the Museum of Northwest Colorado. And Nine News just did a story on it too.
Okay. And will it end up being the largest?
Yeah, right now the largest, I think, is in the Minnesota Museum of Modern Art. It's 8 by 15. This one is 10 feet tall by 16 feet wide.
Wow.
So it's about 30% larger.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Wow. Amazing. Okay. So let's dive in and talk about this work. And I really am curious. So I really want to talk about the figure, and why the figure, because I mean, that's really primarily what you do. I'm going to do a screen share, and I want to jump in and talk about these figurative works. and what really drew you to these people, and you know, and the poses you pick. So I pulled up Bronc Rider first.
Okay. Yeah, this one is this is one of the professional bronc riders that's come through town here. We've had a lot of rodeos. You know, he's got his padded vest on. They've actually got a hinge thing under their arm that they tape in there so that their arm doesn't get yanked off. And you know, I think what caught my attention about him, and I think this rider's name is Hunter. What caught my attention about him is that, you know, the rodeo is such a chaotic place, and you know, I go down in this little pen. I think it's called the bullpen, where everybody, you know, all the riders are getting ready, and 1 minute they got their shirt off and they're wrapping up, and next minute they're dressed and they're doing yoga. I mean, you see some weird stuff in there.
Yeah.
But you know what I think caught my attention about this guy is he seemed so focused on blocking everything out before his run that he just seemed like he was in his own world. And you know, that's why I tried to present him with that kind of background. I tried to present him with a serene kind of background to kind of represent what he might be feeling or thinking.
Wow. Yeah, and you know, so watercolor is just perpetually an enigma to me. Like I totally get it. I get, you know, but when you compare it to an oil painter, you think backwards from an oil painter, right?
Yes.
And so to me, to capture this light on him and this, you know, the way his shoulders and this intense look on his face, but the sun hitting him, and you know, and just all these things, his chaps, and then also having it fade away like this, so that our concentration is pointed to his concentration in this setting.
Yeah, I try to use, I mean, I use a lot of the golden spiral, the golden ratio. That's why a lot of mine are in the same format. And I do try to use restraint the further I get away, you know, out in that spiral. I like to use a lot of restraint. The further I get away from the center of interest, I'll use softer edges, less value, you know, really just to draw the eye up into the important parts of the painting.
Yeah. Wow. Well, and I think you capture the spirit of the person in your work, which is not an easy thing, you know, because so much is, you know, when you see figurative work, it is a true portrait of somebody, and those have certain dimensions in them versus, you know, painting figurative work. And a lot of times with figurative work, people don't describe the face. Right. But you do. And I'm wondering, let's talk about Blue Summer here that I've pulled up.
Yeah, I mean, I try to pick emotions that, you know, show inner reflection or patience, humility. You know, this piece, I did it in blue, and, you know, I think this is maybe how a lot of people felt this summer because of the COVID. Kind of like, yeah, I mean, I wasn't isolation. You know, I mean, I wasn't isolated from people, but you know, everyone's kind of forced to be put in a point of inner reflection, I think. And so, you know, that's why I named it Blue Summer. I mean, not really like it's sad, but you know, definitely slowed down and different. And I like to portray a piece with a dominant color. I think it really helps set the tone, you know, of the emotion.
Yeah.
And I know when we see blue, you know, it triggers serotonin, it makes you calm. You know, yellow makes you happy, red triggers adrenaline. So a lot of my pieces are done with a lot of blue color.
And they are very meditative too. The work just has that quality about them. Okay, cowhide chaps. This one is just, and that strong shadow. Now this one too. And the dust flying up.
Yeah, this one, this cowboy's name is Clint Chu. He's one of the nicest, you know, authentic cowboys you could meet. His family homesteaded here. One of the first families to homestead here in the Yampa Valley. And he's a real cowboy. He raises his cattle, sheep, you know, grows his own hay, does the sprinklers, I mean, drives his own rig, you know, has horses he's raised from a baby. What I liked about this picture is him and his brother both made a pair of cowhide chaps when they were younger. And he was putting these on when I was up at his house. So it seemed like an authentic moment to capture. And I like to put the hat face down. I think that represents humility. A lot of my work has that in it. You know, something about the stance I think caught my attention. You know, a lot of times it is, of course, the emotion or mirrored emotion, you know, that you're trying to create with the piece, but you know, it still has to be a piece of art. It has to have composition. It has to have language of line. Yeah. And so. Yeah.
You know, a lot of your works, I'm going to pull up another one here. A lot of your works, you pick this vertical format with the work, and I just pulled up Reserve. And that, I mean, partly because that's the standard size of watercolor paper, right? But I use the golden ratio, so it's if you know about that, you know, it's a golden rectangle. A lot of designers throughout history have used that. I mean, if you look at your credit card, it's actually a perfect golden rectangle. Sure. So, is that why I use it all the time?
That's why, Rose.
Yeah. Wow. Good.
Yeah. So usually when I switch to a landscape position, it'll be, you know, horses, some running horses or something like that. You know, a lot of it's about adjusting the positive and negative space. There really has to be a balance there. Yeah.
So talk about this one. And I'm also wondering, with your work, do people say, oh, that looks like my niece? Would you actually paint my niece?
Yeah, yes, I will paint your niece, Rose, if you want me to.
Oh, good. But is that a familiar comment for you?
Yeah, and I think people, you know, they relate to some sort of emotion in a painting, and it triggers with them. Sometimes it'll make them think of a person or their daughter. I just had a lady in Steamboat. She bought 2 different paintings because she has 2 different daughters, and she felt like they both kind of portrayed their different personalities.
Oh, wow.
But you know, I don't really know what makes a collector connect with a certain piece. I think different collectors like different kinds of art. You know, I mean, I don't hang a lot of my artwork in my house. I guess I like sometimes more colorful and abstract work. I do have some of it in, but so I think everyone's different in that aspect.
Yeah, right. So what, okay, let me see. Did I get them all? Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to stop my screen share here and come back to you. What are the kind of comments and compliments you get from your work?
You know, they're all different. I mean, I've you know, had some stories that are too long to go into, but you know, of course, when a person cries, that's the ultimate compliment.
Right.
And when someone's really, you know, moved to tears by your piece. So that, you know, I've been fortunate to have that happen a couple times. Yeah. So I think that's probably the greatest compliment.
Yeah. Now you were working with some other thoughts and ideas with your work, and tell me where the work is maybe headed, or some of the stuff that you're playing with that we're not seeing.
You know, I actually just this year I moved from my mudroom into a bigger studio, and I haven't really got in here to paint yet. I've been working on this large watercolor down at the museum, which has taken a lot of my time. So I am anxious to get in here and get this big painting done and just paint for a few months. But you know, I like capturing our rural environment here. You know, hopefully, I hope all of my pieces kind of make a portrait of the real West that exists here. But I am doing some other, I guess, fun work that I do on the side, where I'm integrating the flying saucer in with some Western stuff. Not because I want to do space work or aliens, it's just the flying saucer. I think it's kind of got a you know, it's just an iconic symbol that means maybe intelligence or mystery exploration. You know, if I can use that with the Western image, you know, what does that do to it? So I'm exploring with that. I'm experimenting with that a little bit too.
Nice. Well, we'll have to look for those as well. Okay, so Israel, go nowhere. I'm coming back to you. Chauncey, you are up. You are up to bat.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Welcome. So you are brand spanking new to the show.
Yep.
Yeah. So give us a little background about you.
Well, my goodness, I've been, I went to art school in the late 80s, and I worked as an illustrator for a gift manufacturer. And while I worked there, I would take painting workshops, and I studied from with a lot of really good painters across the country, and I practiced my craft. I worked there for about 12 years, and I towards the end of working there, I got into a couple of galleries, and I started producing fine art, and they were good galleries. Settlers Western in Tucson and Legacy up in Scottsdale. And then I quit my full-time job and went independent fine artist probably about 15, 16 years ago.
Yeah. Nice.
So I've been doing this for maybe fine art for maybe 20 years. And yeah, this is my first year in the Coors show. Very happy to be in it.
Yeah, and good to have you in it. So you know what? I'm going to pop right into a screen share with you, and I want to dive into these. And I'm pulling up full throttle.
Okay.
Right away.
All right.
So where are you getting the inspiration for these? And you're working from photos, I'm assuming.
I'm working from photos. I do a lot of life studies that nobody ever really sees those, that work. But this particular piece, I visited a ranch up in Kalispell, Montana, and I was photographing. They had this large herd of horses and colts and stallions and all kinds of colors. But I was intrigued by this particular cowboy who was running them around. And I've pretty much been focused on horses for the last 5 years. But I painted a person here, but I wanted it to be more about the horse and the energy behind just galloping at full speed.
Talk about why horses have become a dominant part of your work over the last 5 years.
Well, several reasons. I grew up from an early age. I remember just drawing horses and being intrigued with them, fascinated with them. And as a fine artist over the years, I've painted a lot of figurative work, cowboys, Indians, classic American kids. And I enjoy that type of work. Mm-hmm. But about 5 years ago, I'm very much into the craft of painting, and I limited myself to just horses to learn about them, and also just to practice art, mm-hmm. Technique, etc. And so it was a little boring at first, restricting my subject like that, but it's really brought the whole art process alive for me.
So wait, okay. So you restricted your subject matter to get better at your craft?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, so I focused on all the other things to do with art, like, texture, color. I've been on like a 10-year color experimentation thing.
And color is really, in this piece in particular, I think it's just so fascinating because there's color over color over color, like I'm seeing in this red over. Yeah, talk about that a little bit.
Okay, so the way that I work right now is called indirect painting, and there might be like 10 layers in this one piece.
Ooh.
And if it's too bad you can't view it in person, because if you look at the upper left of the painting and all the way to the upper right, there's a whole under layer of rough texture that's built in that moves from left to right. And if you view the painting in person, that texture through all of the layers of broken color. And I'll paint a layer of realism, then I'll sand it off, scrape it off, abstract it out, and then bring it back. All those layers with that texture running left to right creates kind of an energy in the piece in person. And it looks almost like wind, or, looking at it on the monitor right now, you don't see any of that. But if you were to view it in person, you would see the texture, and there's more energy to the piece, which I really love.
So this is interesting because I love these talks because there's always this connection that kind of rises to the surface. So here's Stephanie talking about, sculpting and adding these thick pieces and thinner pieces that create this sense of, motion or different things. And they're not, the horse is anatomically correct, but then what she's doing with the surfaces. And, Israel talking about color and what color does to us when we see it, this somber sense of blue, and then that red does really read like this is an energetic painting. This is like speed happening here,
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it really works. It's just lovely. And the horse's eye, oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the eye. Can I say one more thing about this piece?
Go right ahead. Mm-hmm.
So as I'm painting the piece, looking at it now, I painted it a while back, almost a year ago. But one other thing that intrigued me about this piece is the color of leather. And if, I love visiting ranches. And one thing I observe with things is, saddles age and then they replace straps. And there's a newer bridle on this guy, but the chaps are weatherized and worn. And looking at this piece again reminds me of when I was painting this, I was really enthralled by just the color of the different leather pieces, which is kind of weird. I mean, it's a horse painting, but it's an interesting little side note, I guess.
Well, and what's also really I love that you brought that up, because to me, that just, it really talks about how intensely artists see and train themselves to see things that we just skim over, right? But those little authentic details are what makes the painting sing.
Yes.
So I pulled up Vacaro Reflections.
Okay.
This one has definitely, I'm gonna bring this up. This has, now we can see a lot more of that paint surface.
Yeah, it's pretty thick in the background.
Yeah.
So if you can see, if you zoom into the bottom part, the lighter areas, you can see a little magenta, little spots coming through.
Yeah.
So for this painting, I did an underwash of like bright magenta, and then I layered palette knife on top of it. And where the initial background wash comes through, those are called holidays.
Mm-hmm.
So from the start,
yep.
What's that?
For when you're a wall painter, and if you have a drip, it's called a holiday.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Did not know that.
It's just a tiny little mistake, but.
So, and all through maybe the 8 or 10 layers of painting, I leave some remnant of that underlayer, and
Love it.
At the end, there's this tapestry of texture that I just really enjoy. I really love.
It's just lush. Oh, I love it. And I love this turquoise running in there. It's such a lovely complement, and it's subtle and quiet, but the whole thing just sings.
It's a small painting, so that turquoise actually makes it stand out on the wall.
Yeah. Yeah. It's beautiful. And it focuses you in on, it takes you right into that horse's eye. Okay. So strength and grace. Wow. And this one's right over your shoulder too. So when I get off the screen share, we'll be able to see this in its size, but strength and grace. Wow.
Okay. So again, this was sort of a lesson in subtlety for me, but I created texture from the first. And if you look at the lower left, you can kind of see some impasto-y texture. And the texture goes from lower left to the upper right. And so there's some heavily textured areas, and there's some some smooth areas. And the whole point of this, several things on this piece is, horses are not solitary creatures unless they've been pushed out. But generally there's two or more of them. And if you look at the shadow shapes in this piece where like the front horse, if you look at the nose where it runs into the hair or the shadow shape from the hair on the other horse, there's no line delineating that, those transitions. So it's sort of a piece where there's unity of the light and shadow together, almost making it one horse unit.
Yeah.
Kind of weird, but
It's lovely.
yeah. So sort of monochromatic, dramatic. Like I said, a lesson in subtlety.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed doing that piece. That's the most recent piece I've done to date.
well, and it does have that sense of joy with it too. Like you really enjoyed working on it. It has that sense. So Renegade, lots of texture in this one.
Yeah, it's pretty thick up in the background around the head.
Yeah.
You can't really see it on here, but there's some thick texture. And again, a small painting, 8x10. But the horse was in indirect light, which can be a little bit boring, but it's a wild horse. And so the texture helps make it gives a wildness to that subtle light effect,
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it is beautiful. Okay, and then let me grab this one. Is Rebel. Oh, okay. So talk about this here. The tattooing or the marking on this horse.
Yeah, that's a Freeze brand. That's the brand that the BLM puts on the horses out in the wild to identify them. And there's actually some pretty bright turquoise notes in there that bring your eye right in. But this was a study for a larger piece. This is a stallion that lives out in California on a sanctuary called Return to Freedom. And the larger piece will be him and his lead mare. And she's really white with some interesting markings and black hair. And it's the bigger piece is going to be kind of like a yin and yang piece. It's going to be very interesting.
Oh, I love it.
This guy was built for speed. He was just gorgeous, handsome, rugged, masculine.
Wow.
He was a tough looking horse.
Wow. And elegant too. Wow.
Yeah.
So you're kind of doing some traveling then to get around and find subject matter.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's what inspires the work. I spend a lot of time in the studio, but I take breaks and I'll drive up to the canyons in Utah and spend a week or two just getting lost, driving out in the middle of nowhere, plein air painting, camping, chasing wild horses, or I'll go target a sanctuary, a horse sanctuary, or visit ranches, that kind of thing. Yeah, I have to do that. I have to smell the horses. I have to watch their behavior and be around them.
So you know where the wild horses are gathering and moving?
Yeah. And I've just scratched the surface on finding them.
Wow. So this little exercise in perfecting your craft has really led to a bigger adventure, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's actually pretty amazing. Now, at first I thought, well, I'm going to get bored with horses really quick, but I could almost just take white horses and paint them for 5 years and try different backgrounds, textures, etc., and be interested. So you add different colored horses, and then you get into tack. Like the Vacaro tack is very interesting to me. The conchos, the knots that they tie with, and then tack of saddles from different areas, Texas, Montana, Arizona. That adds a whole nother dimension that's very interesting too.
So So there's a third connection I see in the three of you on this call today that I didn't realize when we started. But you each made a very deliberate break from what you were doing to create fine art. And I'm wondering if Stephanie, go ahead and pop off mute, but I would love for each of you to really just kind of briefly talk about what it felt like to take that leap into the unknown, to say, okay, I am stepping away from the paycheck and I'm going to create art. Jump.
Oh, yeah, well, it felt like a jump for sure. And that's for me what that Reach Recklessly piece was about, was it felt very reckless. I was 36, I believe. And I had a great job that I loved, managing a beautiful barn in Evergreen, Colorado. I lived on the property. It was idyllic. And I kind of, I loved what I was doing, but I didn't want to do it forever. And I just asked myself, what more is there for me in life? And how do I want to be mucking stalls when I'm, later years of life? And that was a big no. So, I mean, at least not for a job. And I jumped and I went to France. I had to quit my job and gave up my home and my health insurance and any promise of a paycheck. And I didn't have a huge savings. And I just went to France for 6 months and painted. So it was exhilarating and scary. I used to be a rock climber and into adventure sports. So I guess I had a little bit of that reckless, adventure seeking streak in me. So, but it was scary. I felt like I had to go all in or I wouldn't do what it took to make the full career, to make it work.
Did somebody support you in this, or did somebody, or how did you find the support system to do this?
So I had, of course, my family. My mom's probably on here. Hi, Mom. I had my family always supporting me in spirit and a little bit financially, but not really a lot. I did have help with a scholarship when I went to France, but that was just for that 6 months. And then it's a big, scary thing when you leave everything behind. I'm single, and I had lived life for a while, and I had lived with a paycheck and had my own home, and I had 2 cars and at the time, and I wondered how I was going to pay for everything afterwards. I didn't. There's so much more to art, to making a living as an artist, than just making the art. I mean, if you don't know how to get it out there to the world and be seen, you have to learn all that. Like, the learning curve was so steep. And I ended up coming to Montana for a sculpture workshop, a 3-day workshop, and ended up staying. I'm still here. And I found a little house on a ranch that they let me just pay the utilities for, and out there for 2 years and just put my head down and worked hard. It was really hard, I won't lie. There was a lot of battling depression and doubt, and there was no going back. There was nothing behind to go turn to. I had to go forward. So it just kept getting better and better.
Wow.
I think mindset is most of it.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. That's super inspirational. Thank you. Israel or Chauncey, talk about the leap.
Yeah, who do you want to go first?
Israel, you're on.
Okay. I was a sign painter in Boulder for a while, which led to construction. And after about 10, 12 years of construction, I got hurt. I had a couple shoulder surgeries, did about a year of physical therapy. And so I tried to go back to construction, and I couldn't. So my wife took the reins at bringing in a paycheck, and we switched. I did the housework. I started homeschooling our daughter. All of our kids had went to public school and homeschool. We thought that was best. At this time, we were homeschooling our daughter, and one of the reasons I started painting again, I think, was just to prove to myself I could still do something, And but it was part of her curriculum too. And after I started painting there, I got into a few state art shows. Then the local college here asked me to teach some classes, and I think that's where I really made the break, the dedication, knowing, okay, I'm going to do this full time, whether I'm teaching or making art. A lot of it's still in the same realm, and it was teaching a lot of different art classes. I was fortunate to teach painting and opaque painting, drawing, 2D design. Had a lot of concurrent high schoolers mixed in with older college students, which was difficult sometimes.
Yeah.
But that was really when I made the transition.
Nice. And haven't looked back. Wow.
And I mean, and I owe a lot of it to my family. It really, you have to have some sort of support system.
Yeah, I think so, right? Yeah, you especially in the art.
Yeah, you have to have income. I mean, that's what it comes to.
Yeah. Chauncey, tell us about the leap.
Well, at the time I was a single dad. I had 2 boys, and I had a good job. I was now creative director at the gift company, but I planned it out. So a couple of years before I made the transition, I started doing work on the sides for royalties. And so when I actually switched to full-time fine art, I had income for, I still actually get royalties from way back when, but it's a lot less than it was. So when I made the transition, I had a foothold, But I mean, the fine art world it's been up and down. It hasn't been easy, but that's what helped me. And I had to do it that way because, like I said, I had 2 boys and I had to have some stability there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. Wow. Well, you know what? I want to thank you 3 so very much for being on this call, Chauncey, Stephanie, and Israel. And do you have any questions or comments for each other as we come to a wrap?
I'll just say that I love Chauncey's work. He knows he's good. Stephanie, your work is just, I don't know what word to use. I've actually looked at it online a lot. Raw, I think is the word. It is just, it's a lot of what I was trying to get into my work, but it seemed to, I find that bold stroke and then I work it out for some reason. And you seem to be able to leave it and let it be. And it's, like I said, it's raw. It's really good.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It does take some nerve to put things on and leave them and not touch them. I still doubt myself a lot, and I just have to leave it, walk away.
Good.
We can help one another that way. Like when you show your friends, are like, it's finished, and you're like, no, but I have to keep going, and just listen to your friends that say, stop.
Yeah.
All right.
Do either of you ride?
What's that?
Do either of you ride horses?
I do, yeah, but it's been a little while. It's been about a year since I've been on a horse.
Yeah, it's probably been 10 years for me. It's been too long.
Too long, for sure.
Yeah.
And do you have horses now, Stephanie?
I have one, yes. Yep, Mo. His name is Smokey the Hare, but I call him Mo.
Nice.
I ride about every other day.
Nice.
Sometimes every day, but it's a little bit of a drive where he is right now. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I like what Chauncey was saying about the smell. I mean, that's, if that's something you would connect to, the smell of horses. I mean, I don't ride a lot, but I'm fortunate to be around a lot of them. So.
It makes a difference, I think, when I'm not around them for a long time. I had a period when I wasn't before I got a horse, and I felt that lack. I needed the connection. So
yeah,
easy and bought a horse.
Well, I think it's something with the other sense, the smell, that really brings me into the present moment when I'm around them.
Well, and the connection, the energetic connection is really important for me. And I think what I can see in each of your work, the people that know horses, they can feel it. If it's a little bit off, they can feel it because there's so much energy that's exchanged between people and horses. I always appreciate other people who whose art can reflect the essence of the horse, like both of yours do.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, I really enjoyed learning about both of your work. Israel, I got to get up there and see that giant watercolor. Stephanie, I used to do a lot of climbing, a lot of rock climbing.
Yeah.
So it's a great all around exercise, but I really enjoy your pieces.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And it was great doing this Zoom video with you guys.
Yeah, Rose, thank you for the wonderful question.
Yeah.
Very insightful and interesting questions.
Well, of course, that's what I'm here for, gang. So I want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Hanukkah, and everyone who is out there listening. Thank you for being here so much. The Coors Show is open online. Go to CoorsWesternArt.com and it will guide you to hand bid, and you can watch the bidding and you can jump in and get going on the bidding and have fun with it. We have one more call coming up on the 28th. And like I said, keep an ear out. I'm going to keep these going. So once again, Stephanie, Israel, Chauncey, thank you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody. Merry Christmas.
Merry
All right, you too.
Christmas.
Bye-bye.
Bye.